Hey, how's it going? And today I'm going to be showing you how I'm going to make 1,000 horsepower to the wheels with my twin engine MX-3. So here's a quick little update. I have ripped apart two engines and I'm going to fully rebuild them from the bottom up. Heads, block, forge, everything. So what I've been doing is collecting parts. I have two engine blocks, I have two crankshafts. They're polished on the journals. I've got these decked, so all I have to do is hone them out, put the cranks in, get my forged rods. That's the only thing I'm waiting for is one set of forged rods, and then I can fully assemble the bottom end because I've got the pistons, the rods, everything. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on my heads. I have brand new valves, I have brand new upgraded springs that was from my sponsor from AWHP, and I'm also going to put the valves and lap them. So what I'm doing today is I'm going to lap them, install my valves, and install my new springs and retainers. So what I've got here is a bone stock KLDE valve spring, and the valve spring is very good for a factory part. These can go to 7,000 RPM all day long. That's not a problem. But since I'm upgrading things while I'm here, I might as well upgrade them. So XL AutoWorks hooked me up with these valve springs, and I have two full sets because I'm doing two full engines. So there's another set. And what I'm doing is I'm going to install them with brand new valves. Here's my brand new valves. So I've got I've got over 50 exhaust valves and I've got over 50 intake valves in this box. So what I'm going to do is do everything brand new from complete scratch, and I'm going to install them into this head. So the only thing I've got done to this head is I got a machine shop to deck the block, or to deck this head, and I actually have three more heads that I've gotten decked, and I'm going to do all the rest of the work myself. So I'm going to lap the valves, get them seated correctly. I'm going to install the valve train and the new springs and retainers, and I'm going to show you how I did it. And this is the heavier spring that is upgraded from XL AutoWorks. So as you can see, this one can go down further, and I'm doing the same amount of pressure to this one, and it doesn't go down as far, and it's because this one is stiffer. And when you have a stiffer spring, it will improve the performance for your top end. And the reason is because you have forced air going in through your turbo when your valves are just going like this, and your spring is supposed to be closing your valve very quickly, and your valve's going 5 times this speed, and air's getting pushed in around the valve, so it's harder for the spring to close it, and that's called valve float. So with a stiffer spring, you will get less valve float, better top end power because it'll breathe correctly because they're actually fully opening and fully closing the valves, and it will increase the overall performance, that is for sure. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my solid lifters from the head, and I'm going to put them onto my cardboard, and I'm going to mark them. I'm going to mark circles on this cardboard and put them in the same orientation. They have to go in the same spot. These are not HLAs, these are solid lifters, and if they do not go in the same spot, your cams will not have the correct lash because these have shims in it, and that's very important, obviously. So what you got to do is make sure they go in the same holes, mark the head, what direction you have it in there, and then have everything lined up nicely. You want to do this once, you want to do it correctly because you got lots of time in here and some money, so you got to be careful. One exhaust valve down into the valve guide, just like so, just like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lap the valve. This is a brand new valve, so it should very be easy because this valve is true. So what I've got here is my valve grinding compound, and what I'm going to do is put the valve ground onto the valve seat. The seat is where the actual valve touches the head. So that's where you want to put it. You can just put it on this like very shiny part and dip it in there and then put it back in. And then you need a drill. And I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. So right now, this is my compound and I'm just going to spin this valve in this compound. I have a decent amount on there. One thing that you don't want is you don't want any on the actual stem. That's very important because if it gets into your guide, you're going to wear out your guide, and that's exactly what you don't want to do. So make sure there's no compound on it. It's okay if there's a little grease on it, but you can't have any compound on the stem at all. So I'm just going to put one valve very carefully into the valve seat, and then I'm going to grab my drill and hook it up to the back of the valve stem, and I'll show you. So here's my drill, and here is a vacuum line. So what I'm gonna do is make sure the vacuum line will slide over the stem of the valve back in here. And if it will, that is a perfect size for what we're doing here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut it about 3.5 inches long like that, cut it right there. And then I'm going to put it into my drill and set it up just like it was a drill bit, spin it all the way in. Make sure it's snug in there. Don't tighten it down like it's a drill bit, but get it snug. So, and then the next thing you're gonna do is you're going to get it in there and on and over the valve stem. Right there, put it on. So now I'm going to hold my middle finger on the end of the valve so it doesn't pop out when I push on it, and shove this vacuum line on to the stem. Get it on as far in as you can, because the further you put it on, the longer it will stay onto the valve. And I will be showing you why I'm doing this in a moment, but just be patient here. It's very important to do all this stuff in the right order. So what you're gonna do here is you're gonna get it spinning with the drill, just like so, and then you're gonna pull it back in to the seat, and then go back out, pull back in the seat. I'll show you what I'll do. So I just did that 4 times, and you can honestly do that until the cows come home. I probably made markings on it, which is what you want to do. So what you're doing is you're sanding the valve and you're sanding the valve seat on the head to bind each other perfectly together so they have a good seat once the valve shuts and it has like a true seal. So I'm gonna do it again, do this for a bit, and when I'm lifting it off, what I'm doing is getting more compound in there. Because if I just hold it there, it'll go silent and it'll grip up, and then I'll lose it and I'll have to put my vacuum line back on. But just gotta do this, gotta be patient. Do this for a minute or so. People say, oh, you only need to do it 4 times, 5 times, whatever. You can do it a lot. The more you do it, honestly, you can't hurt it. The more you do it, the better, in my mind, because you'll make the seat larger. So now I'm gonna pop the valve out by pushing on the stem. I'm gonna pull that valve out and clean it. So I'm gonna clean it with a clean rag, get all this stuff off, and we'll see what we got here. As you can see, there is a stripe on the valve now, and that is lapped. That is what you wanna see. You wanna see that small line all the way around the whole valve. And if that's proper, it will actually be a better seal than you had, because you're wearing it to the head. So they're literally like one of one. This valve is for that hole now. So this valve cannot go into the next hole, this one, or this one, this one, this one. It has to go back into that hole because it's lapped for it. So now I'm gonna clean this seat here, see what's going on there. Then this is the big thing that you check, because I just did a brand new valve. So obviously it's going to be pristine. But this is where you want to get out pitting if you can. Well, you have to get the pitting out, but this is what you really have to keep an eye on. So let's take a look. So there's the lap on the head, and first shot, it cleaned everything up. The head looks completely perfect, but honestly, the valve is consistent all the way through except for one spot. So I'm going to re-lap that one, and then that's gonna be done. I'm going to sort the valves then. I'm gonna have it all in a row, all marked onto the cardboard so they go back into the same holes. So I re-lapped this one and it's looking much better. Everything's looking good, so this one is completely done. So I'm gonna make marks on the cardboard, put this valve in the spot, and then continue on with all the other exhaust valves. Got everything marked here. I'm just putting the valves in the same orientation that I have the head in, and I have it marked out on the bumps on the head so I know which direction it's supposed to be in. These are all in a row. These are all gonna be in a row. So now I'm just going to do all the rest of the exhaust valves and then line them up here. While I'm doing this whole process, I keep my ear as close to the exhaust port or intake port, whatever I'm working on, so I can hear the pitch change. Because when you initially pull the valve into the seat, you can hear it very coarse, aggressive, taking out material from the valve in the head. And as you hold it, it will get more softer and more tame, and that's when you know that it needs a little bit more compound. So once you're starting out, you want it more aggressive, and then you hold the valve onto the head a little bit longer as you're going on to make it more fine-tuned. So it's basically making the grit more fine, and that'll get you the perfect seat. All right, I've got all these exhaust valves totally lapped. I've lapped them all twice in the head. The head is looking awesome. As you can see, the seats look incredible. They have a nice bead all the way around, and I'm ready to go. So my next step is to lap the intake valve. You can see how gray this is and how like yellow this is. This has not been lapped. This is the intake side, and this is the exhaust. All the exhausts have been done, and they look fresh and ready to go. So that is the spot that is sealing the exhaust valves. Just that little circle all the way around the valve seat. So yeah, like I said, I'm gonna do the intakes now, and it's gonna be the same thing, but the valves are larger. They're just a little bit bigger, but most of the time, intake valves take less lapping due to they don't have literally flames going through the holes like the exhaust, because when the exhaust stroke is coming, flames do go out quite a bit, and lots of soot and carbon and everything goes out there. And intake valves, they get cleaned a lot because fuel comes through there. Fuel comes through the intake holes, and that is another reason why it does stay so clean and pristine. But yeah, I'm gonna lap the brand new intake valves that I got, and then I'm well on my way. Sweet, so I got all the valves out in the correct order. I've got my lifters all in the correct order. So now, I cleaned everything. I cleaned everything off camera, very meticulously on all the valves, and the valves were brand new, and look at how much dirt I got off them. Brand new out of the box, and that's how much dirt's on them. So, what you gotta do is you gotta be like super pristine about anything you're doing on your engine, making sure things are so clean that it literally hurts. It's gotta be stupid clean. The cleaner you do it, the better your engine will end up. And why go through all this to have it not be perfect? What I'm doing now is I'm gonna put a valve in, then after the valve, I'm going to put the actual valve seals in. I have all brand new valve seals going in as well. And then I can put the springs on and install the retainers. So that's down the road. We'll start with just doing the valves seals. So we'll do that. Throw a valve in. So this would be that valve. And she just slides right in. And if she doesn't slide right in smoothly and like perfectly, you probably have a little bit of the compound in the actual guide for the valve, and that's no good. So you gotta make sure it's clean. If it doesn't slide in perfectly, there's a problem, clean it out or do something like that. Whoa, it's pouring. I'm going to install all the valves right now, and before I install them, I'm going to dunk them in oil so everything is nice and lubed up, and install them in there, and then I can put the head back face down, and then I can do everything at the same time, and we'll go from there. So now I have to be extremely careful putting this onto its face because the valves are gonna wanna come out. So I'm just gonna do this very slowly, and I have cardboard underneath, so I'm not gonna hurt anything once I'm trying to do other things on top. There we go. So what I got here is a 10mm deep socket on an extension, and I have it for installing my seals for my valves. The valve seals are very tiny. It fits perfectly, so when I'm putting it onto the valve goes in the center of that hole. You put it on, and then there's a point where you need to push it with something. Then you can use a socket and just go bink, and it'll literally click in very subtly. You just slight pressure, and then it'll go click in. So we're working from this side of the head right now. So as you can see, the valves are just poking out. This is the valve, that's the top of it. And the valve seal goes around them. So you put them on top, and then they go down to where it actually has that little part that sits out. So this will click onto it. I'll show you how to do it. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab this with needle nose pliers, dunk it in oil. I'm dunking it in oil as we speak. And now I'm going to put it over top of the valve, just like so. And then pushing down. And I'm gonna try and use my 10mm socket here. And I'm not pushing, I'm pushing with one finger so far. Looking through the side, and then just slight pushing. And there she's on. So it's just a little click and she's good to go. I'm gonna show you one more time. So I got my seal with my needle nose pliers. I'm gonna dunk it in oil and then go straight to the valve, put it over top, make sure it goes on straight. I didn't do a very good job there. Camera's in the way, but I'll get it. Push it over very carefully. Over the valve, there we go. Straight down, grab my 10mm socket, and then she clicks on. All right, I got my blue seals all in there. You can see them down there. So one important thing that I do when I'm always doing this is I grab them with the needle nose, dip them into the oil, put them on, drop the needle nose. Then I grab my 10 mil socket and put it on completely, start to finish on the one seal, and then I continue. Like I don't just do every single one on, because you might forget that you didn't put one completely on or whatever, because it's really hard to tell once you're done with it. So it's really important just to make sure it's all good, safe in there and locked in. And if it doesn't feel 100%, like it doesn't do the little click in, you can always just take it out and start again and just grab another one, because these are like a couple cents each. So it's definitely worth knowing that they're in there. Now I'm going to remove all these springs and I'm going to install them into here, and then I can install my tool onto my head and go from there and actually get the retainers in. All right, I got these all unwrapped. So now I'm gonna see if these are symmetrical. Yeah, they can be put in upside down or right side up, doesn't matter. And literally what they do is they slide in here. You drop them in there. But before I do that, I need to put washers on every hole. They're a washer that is as big as the seat for this, and they go in before the spring, and then it's time to put these in. So these are the washers I was talking about, and the reason for them is they sit down in there where the spring will seat. So they sit in there like so. So they'll go just like that, and it's because the valve will spin. It will turn. As the RPM is going, it'll go up and down, turn right, up and down, turn right, up and down, turn right. The valve spins, or either way, it'll just spin either way, and that is what it's meant for. It's just to reduce friction, so oil can be on the top and the bottom. So that's exactly what this is for. So I'm just gonna drop them in very carefully, just like so, and that one's in there, good to go. So I'm gonna put them all in, easy as that. Just drop them in, one for each hole. Don't skip a hole, don't miss a hole. All right, so I got all those little shims in and we're ready to go. Just double checking right now that they're all in there, and they totally are. So now it's time to drop these bad boys in. Honestly, I'm probably gonna dip these in oil. So I'm probably gonna do one of these and then drop them in. So I'm going to install them all and then I'll move from there. So this is a factory valve spring out of this head. Fits in no problem. I showed you that I put all the shims in the bottom. That is all correct. So this is the spring that I just put in, and this is a stock DE one. Fits in perfectly, slides in, has play, just like it's supposed to, because valves spin. They spin when they run, because they're flapping around like this. If they just went up and down and didn't spin, they would just wear out one spot, because it's just how it is. It would just wear itself to death. So the springs and valves spin slowly, right? So it has to be able to spin. Look at these ones. If they're pressed in, they aren't free. Like, as you can see, they're somewhat free, but they're bound up. Like, I'm tugging on it right now because it's literally jammed, and now it just broke free. Same thing with this. All of them, all the way around. I noticed it almost right away. So there is an issue here, and I put a micrometer on the factory one and put a micrometer on the actual heavier springs that I got here, and they're meant for this head right here. and there's clearly a problem because it's larger. I have pictures of the micrometer. I'm gonna put it in the video right now. DE, can't pick it up. Aftermarket one. And like I said, they're too big, unfortunately, unless I literally shaved off some of the spring. I don't personally feel comfortable with that. Like, engine stuff is very, very precise. And I'm glad I noticed that, because I actually contacted the person I got it through, and I told him, I'm like, yeah, like, this doesn't seem right. Because I've done this many, many times, and they just don't fit correctly. And he said, well, they've been in like 5 engines, and I'm like, what? Because if they were in 5 engines fitting like this, fitting tightly like this, it would literally eat the metal. Like, say it was sitting here and it was sitting too tightly to there, as they're spinning, it would literally be rubbing, and eventually it would put a bunch of metal into the oil. So I hope that didn't happen for other people. I guess I'm the first person that noticed it, but at the same time, like, this is what I do. KL heads, KL blocks, that's it. I don't rebuild Volkswagens, I don't build Audis, whatever. Like, this is my thing. This is definitely my thing. So I knew that right away. But anyways, hopefully we can figure that out. So he's contacting somebody else. I'm not mad at anybody. Mistakes happen, right? I'm just glad I caught it, because I don't want to throw my car in the dyno and then all of a sudden there's metal in the oil, and then all my bearings get screwed up, and then I spin a rod bearing and not good, right? So I'm glad I caught it. Scott's working on it from Exile. He got them for me, and we're gonna go from there. And I honestly, like, I was thinking about not posting this video, but why lie? This is the way she goes when building stuff, and that's exactly what Scott said. He says, sometimes things don't go smoothly. I'm like, you're damn right. Never goes smoothly. So I'm just gonna leave it at that, and I'm gonna have to leave this way, the way she said. So I'm waiting on springs. What my goal was is to lap the valves, oil them up, put them in, put the seals on, springs and retainers. Done. Put it in a bag, put this whole entire head in a bag, and wait until I build my bottom ends. And because I'm waiting on parts for my bottom end. But yeah, sometimes it's the way she goes, but can't get upset, because there's gonna be bumps in the road no matter what happens, really. It's either something or another thing, right? But yeah, I hope I can find some springs that are gonna fit, and I hope I don't have to wait a million years for them, because I've waited a long time for these too, because of COVID and all that. But all right, that's the way she goes. All right, we'll see you in the next one. Like, comment, and subscribe.